Hi, welcome to the H4RL Career Podcast. I'm Jill.
And I'm Dave.
And we're in the middle of a series where we look at some of the world's most pressing issues and problems and the careers that are making a difference in solving those. So today we're going to talk about the world's energy crisis. Everybody knows that we're running out of the fossil fuels that we depend on, and we need to find solutions for that. And so today we're going to talk about one solution in particular that might surprise you, and the people that are working to innovate new solutions for us.
Right, so with the advent of electric vehicles,
it's clean, it's almost like magic.
Yeah, it's almost like magic. Just plug in the wall and we drive around and it's no problem. The problem is the electricity has to be generated from somewhere, right? And the vast majority of it right now is still generated by coal-burning power plants. Now, regardless of how you feel about man-induced climate change and stuff like that, you only have so much fossil fuels out there. So eventually it's going to go away. So some people say, well, what about all the other green technologies, right, that we have out there? Like solar, wind, hydroelectric, geothermal. Well, that's great. We'll just be able to use those, right?
Right, and they sound like they're wonderful and clean and natural because you're using something in nature. So how can it not be fine for the environment, right? Well, each of them has issues. So Dave's going to talk in a minute about how they're just very limited in some ways scientifically, but also environmentally they have issues. So if you use hydroelectric power, you're just harnessing the power of water that's already flowing through our rivers. It sounds great.
Yeah.
But the problem is usually you're using some kind of dam system, so you completely change that water flow. It ruins the entire ecosystem before and after wherever you put that hydroelectric power source for all of the organisms living in that environment. So it really has a huge impact. So using water isn't quite as environmentally friendly as it seems. And then for solar power, you've got some energy intensive and nasty stuff that has to go into those panels. And then when you talk about like wind power, those blades kill a huge number of migratory birds. And so they really have some negative impacts that we may not realize right off the bat.
And to top that off, people don't realize this, but the problem with a lot of green technologies is that they're not consistent. Like a coal-burning power plant, you can burn coal day and night, and they can run in the daytime and at nighttime, and you can have the same power load going at night and day.
Easy, consistent solution.
Right? Well, you can't really generate solar power at night, right? That's an easy example, right? And wind turbines, you can't generate it when there's no wind, right? And you also have a hard time generating when it's too high of winds, by the way, because it has stresses on some of those things. And when it gets cold and icing outside, by the way, those actually cause wind turbines to shut down as well. So there's a lot of consistent energy problems. Not to mention this kind of fundamental problem with storing energy, right? It's really hard to store energy. So if you generate in the daytime and you want to use it at night, it's kind of actually hard to store all that power and then use it later on. Energy wants to be used instantaneous, right? And it's hard to transmit it, by the way, long distances. That's why you actually have power plants at different locations around the country or the world, and they distribute it out a certain distance from them. But, you don't have one main power plant providing power everywhere. Even if you can make enough energy, it's kind of hard to distribute energy far distances. You get losses. So That's some of the problems with green technology. Now, actually, we're going to talk about some of those problems and people working to solve those on future podcasts.
Right. We're absolutely not saying we should abandon
those
energy sources.
We think they're great technologies.
But there are some issues with them that people are working to solve, so We'll talk about that later. But today we're going to talk about one that has a lot of promise.
Absolutely. It's probably one you're probably not thinking about when you think about green technology.
It doesn't sound environmentally friendly.
It's actually nuclear energy, by the way. So people are like, wait. How in the world is this green good for the environment? You have radiation, you have high-level waste, you have to store. There's no way that's really green technology. When we think about green technology, we think of low carbon. So it doesn't really emit any like carbon dioxides or carbons into the air, which could potentially lead to climate change issues, right? So that's what we mean by green technology. Now, absolutely, they have waste. Now, we're gonna get a high level here, we're gonna keep kind of high level for those who just are casual listeners. But on the back end, I'm going to dive a little bit into the science of this a little bit more, so that for some of you hardcore science people who really want to get into details, wait till the end a little bit. We'll talk about that then. But for right now, we're going to talk a high level. So, and by the way, you can actually come to our website at h4rl.com, h4rl.com, and check out, we actually have STEM classes in our membership area that I teach, and you can go in there. I have one on nuclear engineering, I have one on product design, I have one on some humanitarian engineering, and some other ones. Humanitarian engineering. So those
Slow down.
Right, sorry. Some other courses you can actually take part of our membership, as well as the career exploration. By the way, if any of this sounds interesting to you that we're going to talk about, absolutely come to our website, join us. We'd love to talk with you and help you figure out if this really is a good niche for you. But anyway.
Right. There's a lot that goes into choosing a good career.
Absolutely.
One that really you can make it happen and you'll enjoy it for the rest of your life. So we have a whole course in there, tons of resources set up to help you with that. And we're there to help you with that. So make sure you visit us at our website, h4rl.com, and check all of that out.
Oh, by the way, also, if you find this interesting at all, please give us a thumbs up and, like us, subscribe, do all those things you can wherever you find us. Please tell other people as well, because we're really trying to grow this. Now let's talk about nuclear engineering. All right, at a high level, there's really two basic types of nuclear engineering, all right? Well, nuclear power, I should say. There's fission and fusion. Now, to throw a little equation out there that we all probably have heard of called E equals mc squared, developed by Einstein back in the early 1900s. It basically means the amount of energy you can get out of, the amount of energy in a mass is basically equivalent to its mass times the speed of light, which is 186,000 squared. So that's huge. That's a huge number.
186,000 what?
186,000 miles per second. You square that and you times it by your mass, in this case, if it's in kilograms, and that is the amount of energy you can get out of anything, right? If you could split it or fuse it. So fission is splitting of atoms. Fusion is bringing two different molecules together, like two hydrogen atoms. You fuse the two protons together, right? And you make helium, right? That's what happens in suns. Suns generate all the elements, well, not all the elements, but most of the elements in the universe, all right?
So stars are like big fusion reactors?
Big fusion reactors, and that's basically what, that happens. Now, all of the reactors we have so far are called fission reactors. We actually use other atoms other protons and radiation, stuff like that, to split atoms apart, and when they split, the energy given off is equal to E equals mc squared, about the amount of mass that got separated. Huge amounts of energy. I mean, that's a gigantic number. So that's why it's so amazing. It takes a little bit of mass to create a whole bunch of energy, right? And then that creates heat, and you take water, you circulate around it turns to steam, and goes to turbines, which makes electricity. That's how we use nuclear reactors to make power for all of us, right? The problem is it does create radioactive material, right? Big problem. That doesn't decay. It takes a long, long time to go away. Tens of thousands of years to go away. So that's the problem, right?
Why are we looking at nuclear power as a good option?
Right. Nuclear power is like, oh, wow, that's a problem. Plus you have incidents like you had the 3 Mile Island, more recently in Japan, the Fukushima. You also have Chernobyl. So everybody's like, oh my gosh, there's a meltdown. It's going to be horrible for the environment. It's a problem, right? Well, there are people looking at more safe type of reactor designs called pebble bed designs, where you basically take the nuclear material, put it inside of an insulator that kind of absorbs some of the radiation. It's not so bad, and safer ways to handle it. So there are better designs than 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl out there today. And they're actually doing advancements in that to make it safer. And we can actually absolutely do fission reactions now. But really what everybody's looking at is fusion. The ability to take two atoms, fuse them together like the sun, and get a bunch of energy off of it, right? So that's all the energy, basically, that supports all life on Earth comes from the sun. And a very small fraction of the sun's energy, by the way. So think about it. That's a huge amount, all right? Even the stuff that's used for solar panels is part of those reactions of some of that energy, not all of it, that comes off of it.
So that's actually what we're talking about today, our nuclear fusion reactors.
We're going to talk about all, but mostly the holy grail that everybody's trying to get to is fusion. All right, so we'll stop that. We're fusing two things together. There's lots of people working on this, right? There's people in Idaho National Laboratory that does renewable energy and stuff like that. They're absolutely looking at the material side of it because there's lots of problems, very hard to do. A lot of the national labs in the United States are working on this, and some international labs. They've been working on it for like 20 years or so, and they're going to be working on it for a while because we've actually obtained fusion. We actually can do fusion, and we do that through a very complicated process, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But they actually can do fusion, but we can only do it for a couple seconds or maybe a minute at most right now. We can't do what they call a sustaining reaction, and that's really what they're trying to do. Where basically the idea is once you get it going, it basically will produce more energy than it takes to create it. Because you're going to find out later on, it takes a lot of energy to make this work initially. Because what you're trying to do is actually trying to make a small sun. Believe it or not, for fusion to work, you got to be around 100 million to 150 million degrees. And they've able to do this. They can do this through different processes, but that's the temperatures you got to get to in order to get these atoms to kind of fuse together. But then they get off a tremendous amount of power, like making a small sun. So that's the big point that we're trying to get. And there's different ways they can do that. Now, if you're interested in this type of thing, you're looking at like nuclear physics is going to be the area you want to go into, or general physics, as well as like nuclear engineering or mechanical engineering or even electrical engineering. These are all people going to be playing a part in the development of this. And we're talking about the future here. We're not talking about anything that's going to be around in like 5 years or even 10 years. You're probably talking about 20 years, 30 years, 40 years out before we actually get a functioning fusion reactor that's going to actually be providing electricity.
But they're working on it now.
They're absolutely working on it now.
It's really important research now.
There's lots of government money going into it. There's actually a lot of capital venture people who are getting into like private companies who are trying to do this on a scale that they can actually make electricity for people. This is the future.
So nuclear fusion creates an incredible amount of power.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Other than that, what makes it so much better than nuclear fission? Because they're doing that now.
Agreed. So the issue there is the byproducts, the waste you get out of it is not nearly as radioactive. All right, it doesn't have the alpha radiation, which is the really dangerous radiation. It has more like the beta radiation, which is like neutrons and stuff like that. And the half-life, instead of being tens of thousands of years, is on the order of like 10 or 12 years. So you don't have to store it that long before it's really safe and you can deal with it again. So a lot of the byproducts, by the way, of the type of fusion they're trying to do is actually helium, because they're trying to use hydrogen to do the fusion.
Oh,
so
wow.
helium.
Did you know that helium is actually, there's a shortage?
Yes.
There's actually a shortage of helium right now, and it's important for some things like MRI machines, like things that we really need, not just party balloons.
Right.
But it's in a shortage situation.
Now, we're going to start to dive a little bit more into the details at this point, but the high level is fusion is really where they're trying to go to. We can do fission, and even fission reactors. Most of the power plants in the United States and in the world, by the way, are going to be obsolete by 2050. So they're going to be able to have to replace the technology by then, and it's very expensive to replace nuclear reactors because there's a lot of safety precautions you have to go into because everybody's so scared of it. Now, other countries such as Russia, China, and India are heavily investing in nuclear reactors because they see the future and how much power it can provide over coal and those type of power plants. They are more efficient and they can create a lot more power long term. They're actually building reactors at a pace of 30 to 1 compared to the United States.
Wow.
So but the United States kind of need to get into that. We really want to become energy independent for the future. Now, they are making great strides in making safer and better designs of fission reactors. But that will get us partially there. But the big push would be fusion reactors because it's safer and better in the long term. Because guess what? The fuel that actually powers this fusion reactor, part of it comes from seawater.
Wow.
Yes. So now we're going to dive a little bit more into the physics of this stuff. All right. So the type of reactions they're trying to get is called trying to fuse hydrogen atoms together. And the byproduct of the hydrogen fusion together would become helium. So we're going to go with chemistry a little bit, right? Hydrogen has 1 proton. Helium has 2. You fuse 2 hydrogens together. You have 2 protons. Now you get helium. And there's a lot of energy that's given off. The reason why they're looking at this is, one, it usually happens at lower temperatures than trying to fuse other types of atoms together. Those have to require even higher temperatures to get those to work. All right. So the 2 main materials that go into making a fusion reaction out of hydrogen is what they call deuterium, which is it has 1 proton and 1 neutron. Most helium doesn't have a neutron. It's just a proton atom with an electron going around it. Right? A proton in the nucleus with an electron going around it. Right.
Two protons. Right.
No. Hydrogen has 1.
Oh, you said helium.
My bad. Hydrogen has 1 proton with no basic hydrogen has basically one proton with no neutron, right? Deuterium has one proton and one neutron, and that's found in seawater and naturally occurring in the environment. It's about every 1 out of 5,000 of its hydrogen atoms is deuterium, so that's great.
Found in seawater.
Found in seawater, mostly, right? The other part you need is called tritium, which is actually one proton and two neutrons. That is not naturally found in the environment. That is the kicker. That's the one that we have to try to make. Man has to kind of generate that part of the fusion constituents to make it work, right? So they actually said if you actually make this work, 1 gallon of seawater can create the same amount of energy as around 300 gallons of oil.
Wow.
Right? That's just seawater.
It sounds too good to be true.
Right. You have tons and tons of seawater.
A gallon of seawater, power your car, power your house.
Well, you would probably make a big power plants because it's kind of dangerous, and then distribute it out to electric cars, which makes sense and why we're trying to get to electric vehicles, right? Instead of having everybody, you can't have like a fission reactor inside your car. It's not going to happen, all right? So you have to do this in a different location. All right, so there's that part. How do you make tritium on a scale that's cheap, economical, and people can use? Well, there's actually people looking at how to do this. How do you scale it up? The way they currently do it is you take hydrogen and you heat it up super hot using other processes to create a plasma. All right. So plasma is basically where the electron, it gets so hot, it's the fourth state of matter, right? You have liquid, solid, gas, and plasma. Lightning is plasma. The sun is primarily plasma. It's basically where the electron isn't circling around the protons or the nucleus anymore. It gets so energetic that you got electrons moving around in clouds, and you got protons and neutrons kind of floating around in clouds. So they're kind of disassociated with each other, right? So it has a charge to it. So it's like negatively charged or positively charged depending on how much of each type of particle you have inside there. So what they do is they then take huge magnetic fields to compress this charged plasma to shrink it down, and that makes all these particles get even more excited and collide into each other, so it makes it even hotter. And they keep on pushing it down until it gets pretty hot. In that case, some of the neutrons then bind with some of the protons, and you get tritium, right? Then you can pull that out, and you get tritium in the hydrogen side, and so you have one constituent, and then you can get the deuterium from seawater, and now you have the two main constituents you need to make a fusion reaction, right? They're trying to do. Now, once you have these two materials, they have a separate process, all right? That's how you make your materials to make this work. So there's different ways that they can actually generate the fusion process, and everybody's kind of working on their own way. One of the most tried and true that they've developed, I can't really remember the name of it, the exact specific type of design, but basically it's a chamber that they pull a vacuum in, right? And then they inject basically this tritium and deuterium in a gas form. They excite it to a plasma form, and then they use magnetic fields to then compress that plasma with the deuterium and tritium in it, and basically until it gets really, really small. And basically, since it's a vacuum, you don't have conduction and convection heat transfer to the outside. You'd only have radiative heat transfer, which you don't get all the details of that, but that's why they use a vacuum, by the way.
So it's sort of almost like floating in the middle and not touching the outside.
Right, it's not touching the outside because it's going to get so hot. They literally heat this thing up by compressing it down with magnetic fields to get about 100 million degrees, 150 million degrees, right? That's how hot it is. But since it's not really touching anything because it uses magnetic fields to compress it, at those temperatures, that's when the protons will then be able to overcome their repulsive forces, the two positive ones, and come together and combine and form helium. And then it gives off a tremendous amount of energy and a couple beta particles, which are neutrons, right? Gives off some of those. And that's when you get the fusion, the energy. And then ideally, you would take that heat and you'd use it to, again, cause heat water to go to steam and turn a turbine engine. The problem is they've been able to do this for about a couple seconds. They've gotten fusion to work within a couple seconds, but they haven't got to a point where they call it the sustained reaction, where basically you're generating more energy from the reaction than it takes to create the reaction.
Right. So theoretically, You'd need a whole lot of energy to get this started.
Absolutely.
But then it would just keep going and going. And so
Exactly.
it produces way more than you need.
Right, and as you'd feed more and more of your deuterium and tritium into the reaction, and it keeps on creating more and more, kind of like the sun does, right? The sun just has a constant reaction going on and on. It starts, because it's so hot. The reason why the sun works is because it has so much gravity. The gravity kind of creates that pressure and that heat at its core, which initiates the reaction. And when the reaction happens, then the heat that's generated from the fusion process then pushes out on the gravity and kind of keeps the sun burning. So that's actually what keeps the sun stable. Of course, the sun will eventually collapse when it gets to a certain point when it starts to make iron. Because iron is the last molecules, by the way, if you want to get a little bit into like the nuclear physics, is the last molecule where you get more energy out than it takes to create it. And basically, it all depends on basically how much mass it has and how quickly the star will start to collapse on itself, because there's not much pressure to push out. Whether that star collapses and becomes a neutron star, or becomes a dwarf, or if it turns into a black hole. Because in that case, it has so much mass, it'll collapse really far down itself and become a black hole. But we talk about all this, by the way, in great detail in my STEM class on nuclear physics and engineering, if you're interested in doing this. So, but anyway, that's how a star works.
The quick version.
This is the quick version, by the way.
More science later.
Way more science and physics about it.
So scientifically, this should be possible.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
There's real hope that we can get to where a fusion reactor can be powering everything we need to run in a pretty environmentally friendly, efficient manner.
In theory, it's possible. The problem is actually making it work in real life, right? Because we don't have a tremendous amount of gravity to cause this reaction to occur. We have to cause the reaction to occur by other means. Magnetic fields. Lawrence Livermore is actually looking at using lasers, super high, and most of the powerful lasers you've ever seen in your life. And they have a bunch of them, all pointing at one focused location to try to cause the superheating to react. So some people look at lasers. And actually, there's a company called General Fusion, who's a private company, looking at a different way to cause fusion. They have this large ball that, at least this is the principle. They have never actually got it to work yet. But the principle is have this large steel ball that's maybe 12, 15 feet in diameter. You put a bunch of liquid metal. They didn't really see what kind of metal it was inside there. Then you kind of pull the vacuum. Use magnetics to kind of pull the sphere apart and make like a little hollow point in the middle. You inject your deuterium and tritium inside there in the plasma form, and then you use all these I don't quite understand. It says some kind of piston, but it wasn't quite a piston. It had to use something else to basically cause this metal to collapse really quickly on the interior part of that plasma to cause it to get super hot, which then causes fusion, this is the principles, and then it heat up the metal ball that's surrounding it to a super hot temperature, and then you pump that out through a heat exchanger for water, causes it to go to steam, and they just repeat this pulsing process. That's their theory. They've got each of the different major parts to work separately, but not everything together. And that's really a kicker. Trying to get everything to work together is a really hard part.
So should we talk about who it is that's working on this? Like, if I'm interested in contributing to this effort, I want to save the world and find a new, better power source. Yeah. Who does this?
So by the way, this truly is like the science fiction, but coming to life in the future. This is like, if you want to generate the power that's going to provide power to, honestly, as far as my grandkids, my great grandkids, and beyond, this is the technology. So you are that far out from this actually becoming real. Before we get there, there's actually another organization international organization over in Europe trying to make the largest one of these type of reactors. It's huge. It's the reactor itself is going to be 30 feet in diameter roughly, or maybe 20 yards. So actually 60 feet in diameter. They think that the main reactor part will be designed in 2024, but that's when it's going to be built. But they won't go with the first reaction until 2035. That tells you how long it takes to get to that point with all the restrictions and everything else that goes along with it. Yeah, that's crazy. And then they don't actually think it will actually be generating a self-contained reaction a self-sustaining reaction until 2040. And if that works, that gives everybody the blueprint on how to do it. So then they think the next real generator is actually making electricity for everybody by 2060 or 2070.
So there's long-term jobs.
This is a long-term, right? Exactly. I'm trying to tell you, this is out there, people. So if you are literally a teenager listening to this and you're 15 years old, and I'm here and it's 2020, and I'm here in 2060, that's 40 years. That is your career. If you want to have your career working on fusion reactors, this is the time to get into it, because this is what it's going to be. All right, you're going to be for your life, and you'll help bring that about for honest. I know you don't think about this, but for your kids and your grandkids, by the way, their power to generate everything. So this isn't anything close. Until then, we can get to fission reactors to get us to that point to generate the power, and some of the green technologies, and possibly additional some fossil fuels until that point. But that's really what man has to get to if you actually want to have the same type of power that we use today for all the devices and cars and stuff. We want to keep that same type of lifestyle and not go back to medieval times where everybody's riding horses and stuff like that.
Horses and candles.
Right. We could go back there, but if you don't want to go that back way, you're going to have something like this to generate that kind of power, because
quaint
green technology, despite what people traditionally think is green technology, just can't generate that much power. And we can have a discussion on why that is later on. But the people working on this, physicists, nuclear physicists, all right? You absolutely got mechanical engineers and electrical engineers actually designing the reactors, helping them. Material scientists, because there's actually a big problem with the materials, because it gets super hot inside there, and even though it's radiative, you also get bombardment from beta radiation, which actually deteriorates a lot of materials. There's actually a big push by the Idaho National, the Renewable Energy Laboratory in Idaho, on how do you make the materials that can withstand these temperatures and this kind of radiation without breaking down. So you got material scientists working on this as well. And eventually you're going to have policymakers, by the way, who are actually going to be important to make sure that there is public support and laws put in place on how to handle this type of stuff as well. There's a big issue with people not trusting nuclear power, and there's going to be a big issue to try to help convince people that it is safe if done right. So that is big careers going into it.
So those policymakers, who are those people? I mean, you need them to understand what's going on, right? Yeah,
so those are people that are going to be in the government, obviously working for government agencies like the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and stuff like that. They'd have a science background a lot of times. Sometimes they might actually have a legal background, and they're kind of developing the policies in which, these things should be governed and operated and built, and, to make sure that they're safe for everybody to use. And how are you going to use it and stuff like that.
So you would maybe go into one of those other fields that you talked about, one of those science engineering type fields, and then maybe go on to law school.
Right.
And you'd be prepared for that.
Exactly. So.
And how do all of these careers pay?
These all pay well, by the way. You're going to be getting advanced degrees, by the way. I mean, if you're talking about going into nuclear physics to do this type of work, you're talking like a PhD. Honestly, you got to love physics. You got to love all the stuff that's about this and be good at math and physics, by the way, and probably some chemistry as well. But
what about the engineering approach? Is that a PhD?
No, a lot of those could be bachelor's. Master's degrees probably would not hurt, honestly, for this type of field. A lot of times you can get an undergrad in nuclear engineering. Sometimes you require to get a master's degree, get an undergrad in mechanical and a master's in nuclear, depending on what school you go to. But yeah, they pay well. Nuclear engineers pay well. So not all nuclear engineers work on this type of work, but they all work on reactor designs a lot of times. But they all pay well. This is very well-paying jobs, people. Very sciencey, very cutting-edge type of stuff that they're working on. National labs, you get to work with the best facilities and with some of the smartest people around to really try to solve these type of problems. So if you are a science person, this is a great way to get into it.
So let's talk because what we do is we help people find their careers, right? That's what we're here for, is to help you find a career that you love. So we've talked about what makes a career a good fit for someone. What is it? What factors contribute to you being satisfied in your career long term? So what I'm hearing from you is this checks a lot of boxes if it's a good fit for you.
Yes.
Because you've got good pay, you're going to be well respected, you're doing work that matters. You said more of them. Oh, you're working in a nice environment, right? Like really good facilities. So, and I think you said even more, and now I can't remember what they were, but you're saying a lot of things where if this is a career that interests you, you're probably going to find some good long-term job satisfaction.
Right. But again, you probably want to come and jump into our career exploration course, because we'll help walk you through some of these things and help make sure that this is a good fit.
Right, that's the key. Is it a good fit?
Is it a good fit for you? And kind of help you figure out how to maybe get into this field a little bit too. So,
and anyway, how do you pay for all the schooling we're talking about?
Absolutely.
All of that is in our career course. So if you come visit us at h4rl.com, there's a free trial. So you can sign up and go in and see everything that's there. and see what valuable resources that we have. And we've tried to make it as affordable as we can.
Absolutely. We're really here to try to help you guys out, but it costs money to have a website. It does. It costs money more than you would think for all the different softwares and everything else you need to have.
Right. So that's why it's not free, because we would go broke.
Right. So right now, you can actually go in there and actually also see the STEM class more than the nuclear engineering part, by the way, with our free trial if you want to try it out. So we'll have more of these type of podcasts coming out about other types of careers. They're not all going to be science people. Science is working on a lot of problems, but there's other ones that we actually have planned that are going to be more not science-based. All right, if you found this at all interesting, please give us a thumbs up, like us, subscribe, give us 5-star ratings or wherever you're here, and even tell people about it, by the way.
We really appreciate it.
We're really trying to grow. We're really trying to get this out there, help people, and also, get the awareness out there for us. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and let us know what you want to hear about.
Oh, please, yes. If you guys have ideas, like what kind of problems that are out there that you've heard of.
Or careers.
Tell us if you're on YouTube, put it in the comments below. If you don't, you can go to our website at h4rl.com. And there's a thing about contact. Just go up there and shoot us an email like, hey, I was wondering about this type of career or this kind of problem. What are people working to do to solve it? We'll put some research into it and we'll have a podcast on that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Until next time, I'm Dave.
And Jill.
Bye.